So what are we talking about today?
Well, what we're going to today, what we're going to chat about today is making a difference in social distancing. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm just going to talk about a little bit of logistics. I think everybody that's on here, I know them, so I think everybody's pretty much used to Zoom. But if we can just make sure that we're all muted and then unmute ourselves when we're going to be chatting, that would be awesome. So I wanted to do a little bit about, you know, who we are in this conversation. Basically, first of all, I'm going to say welcome to Everything Happens in the Conversation. Let's chat about making a difference in social distancing. And the reason I'm having these chats is because I wanted to have chats and have a conversation with people and create stuff. And so I invited my colleagues and my friends from Super Coach Academy, because I'm presently doing Super Coach Academy 2020. I am a life coach, a life transformation coach. And right now I'm like getting the certification to get like more in depth with the 3 principles of mind, thought, consciousness. And it's just like, how do humans work? And I love that there's a place in us where everything's peaceful. And when I'm in touch with that space, I feel so good and my mind can create and do things. So I love it. And I invited my friend Jill to chat with me. And Jill is also a Super Coach Academy 2018 graduate, and she's in the advanced track of this year. So Jill, hi.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. So I'm talking about making a difference in social distancing, and I'm going to tell you a story. The story is, I was creating all these subjects, and I was like, just like anything that I thought I could talk about, and I have no idea how making a difference in social distancing showed up in my list. And it's the one that I was like, oh my God, what am I going to say? And it's the one that had the most votes in my poll. And so I called Jill and I said, Jill, would you like to play with me? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, I have no idea what we're going to talk about. And she's like, but Jasmine, you're already doing it. I was like, what do you mean? And so it was interesting to see how something it's just interesting to see how I was thinking about what making a difference meant. Like, I don't know what I was making up, but it wasn't what I was doing. I wasn't making a difference. So I like to look at that kind of stuff. Like, where does it come from? Like, what is making a difference, really? Yeah. What is it for you, Jill?
Well, I love what you're saying, because it was interesting when you and I first spoke, and you're like, oh my gosh, how would we ever do this? And then you're at the same time you're telling me, yeah, I thought this would be fun. So I reached out to some friends to see if they would talk with me, some other coaches, and then I got on this post and I posted it and I did over here, and I was like, sister, that's all it is. All you're doing is listening to your knowing and then moving in that direction. And you know what you said about this idea, when we think, well, I'm social distancing, I'm staying in, I'm doing, so how in the world would I make a difference? And I think that would be a great thing for us to explore together today, because to me, it looks like you were saying, Jasmine, if I make a difference, it's got to be huge. In order to make a difference in the world, I got to do, a Melinda Gates thing. I got to do something massive. And I see more and more clearly the misinformation I have in that thought, right? So I think it'll be interesting as all of us explore together what that looks like to make a difference, and how simple it can be if we trust that we're not really sure how it needs to look, and that even that term, it needs to look a certain way, is a misnomer, right? Like, if I just show up and let it unfold, how will that look? What will come from me? What will be created through me? So I think if you guys, I think it might just be fun to kind of open it up and just see what people are feeling, what it's looking like to you guys right now, what you're sensing about it.
Can I share a story that happened to me yesterday about this?
Sure.
Okay, cool. So I have a 5-year-old daughter. I'm Jill's daughter, so she already knew that. But
Yes, I did.
For the rest of you, I have a 5-year-old, and we were at the grocery store yesterday, social distancing, far away from everybody. And we walked out of the grocery store, and a lady was right outside the door. She was social distancing too, but she said, "Excuse me, can you please give me some money if you have anything? I'm trying to buy my daughter a birthday cake, but my money didn't come through. It's supposed to be deposit. I mean, I don't know, she said all of the things. And so I only had $2 in my pocket, but I gave it to her. And so I was walking away, and my 5-year-old said, "So why did she need money?" And I said, "Oh, she was trying to buy some cake, but her money didn't come in. And so she wasn't able to do it." And my daughter just stopped me and said, "But then you showed up, and now everything's perfect." And I was like, "Oh, if I could just see the world always like that." And then I showed up. Like, of course I did, because that's what happened. Anyway, making a difference in social distancing, even when you feel like you can't connect. I was able to, and my daughter was able to see that. So.
Wow. That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And isn't it amazing that it can be that, it's that simple. And I think that's what I would love to just really dive into, is that it's the simple things, but it's just, you did what occurred to you in the moment to do, which was a loving gesture for someone that was in need of something. And there wasn't a lot of thought of, oh, I wonder if should I do that? I mean, there wasn't even that. I don't know, was there? It doesn't sound like there was.
No, it was just like, oh, of course, I only have $2, but here you go.
Yeah.
But the reaction of, "and then you showed up," was my favorite.
Yeah.
Like, and how often do we, like, whenever I'm just in the present, like you're talking about, not thinking about it, then I show up a lot more for others, it seems like.
Yeah.
And probably myself too. So.
Wow. And even that word, when you're present, like, Jasmine, how do you see that when you're present?
Yeah, I think that the key in what she was saying was, when I don't think about it, I show up more. It's like, if I stand up, like right now we are social distancing. I live alone, and I don't have any kids, and I don't have a husband. And in my mind, I'm like, well, how am I going to make a difference here, right? So I'm doing this now, and thank you, Jill, for getting me to see that this is in some way, making a difference, because we can actually now discuss something that's makes a difference. Do you understand? And one of the things that showed up for me is, because I live in an apartment building, And so now I used to, I live home, right? I work from home and I live at home. I live home, of course. So I work from home, so I'm constantly here. So this is not a big difference for me. Now, the only difference is now I can't go have drinks with my friends at the bar. But what is different for me is that now the neighbors are all there. And now they're noisy, and there's more noise than usual, and I can see that I get annoyed with noise, you know, and I think that my next door neighbor also gets annoyed with noise, and the other day my dog was barking, because she's a dog and she barks, and he came out and he barked at me. He barked at me because my dog was barking. And ever since, I've been having I've been having thoughts of like, he shouldn't do that. Like, I've been annoyed with him. and what I saw is that I'm not revving myself up. Because in the past, what I could have done was rev it up and say, he's not allowed to. Next time he makes a noise, I'm going to go bark at him, and I'm going to tell him, and then, you know, make a mess of the whole thing, you know? And I saw myself this morning starting to go in that frame of mind, and I was like, no. I am going to contribute to peace. This is, I don't want that, you know? So in that respect, I'm also making a difference, right? Because I'm not listening to that crazy thinking of, I'm right, he's wrong, and let me show him how wrong he is. If he can't, like, because I see that that's not something there for him, because he's doing it with everybody, you know. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to participate. It's okay. It's like, yeah, we're in something that is different for everybody, and everybody's going to deal differently. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I love just that. How do I contribute to peace? Like, just that. And even on a deeper level, do I see that that is my true nature? You know, like, my innate nature is peace. It's peaceful. And am I willing just to, when I feel myself rev up like that, am I willing just to fall back into, oh, yeah, I kind of don't like what my stomach does when I'm revving.
Yeah.
Because even as you were speaking, you know, I could feel like even the collectiveness of all of us settling a little bit into the conversation, and just into that really peaceful space that you were talking about. Because that's a great space to be in.
Yeah, I was before this chat, as you know, I was a little up in my head, and I was like, what am I going to talk about? And I was in the shower, and I was like, well, like, where does it come from? Like, I was really just inquiring for myself, where does it come from? And for me, what really makes a difference is what kills it. Like, what makes me stop making a difference? You know, that's kind of like what shows up for me. And there are these things that I don't know why I do them. I don't know where they come from, but I just do them. I mean, you know, like, I want to be right, or I have this big thing where I hear my father's voice in my head that says, don't let people step on you. You know, don't step. And I'm like, who says they're stepping on me? You know?
Summer raised her hand. Do you want to share something with us, Summer? Love to hear it.
Yeah, I was just thinking about what you started with, the listening to your knowing and moving in that direction, and how we make a difference. And I think in a lot of ways, given the state of the world currently, but I think it's always this way, and that is that the need is big. And so we think the difference has to be big to meet the need. And I find that it's, you know, that little catchphrase, it's always the little things. I think the difference is small. And I think that that makes it possible for each of us to be present to what is ours to do and what it is that makes us amazing and awesome and unique and wonderful. And that if we lean into that, if we follow in that direction of what's truly astounding about us as individuals, that is the difference. That's the generosity. So I was, when all of this began, I was really stymied around, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? How do I help? How do I make a difference as a therapist? And it's been over a month now, and I haven't done a thing. But what I could finally see that what there is for me to do is to record some guided imagery and put the recordings out for people to find a break, to find peace, to find restoration or hope just from taking a breath. And so I'm clear now that that's what's mine to do. And I think that by doing that, that's what will help make a difference as much as I'm capable of at this time. And that takes everything one step further.
I love that. Summer, did you feel like what was the difference when you just said, well, I just didn't do anything and then I did? Like talk about that minute or that moment, or what shifted or what happened to you in that space?
I think it's when I became aware of how big the need was, and every intention I explored around the bigness of the need and how to meet that, I had no creativity available. I had nothing to offer. But when I stepped away to see what it is that I could offer, even though the need is big, what I would offer is just this tiny little nugget, but that's enough. And so when I could take my eye off of the big need and I could just be present to what I'm capable of, then what happens to the big need will happen if all of us offer our own little nugget. So I'm going to do that. Yeah.
So perfect.
And you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the drop in the lake, and how it just, like, we don't know what's gonna happen. We don't know who it's gonna reach and how it's gonna reach. You know, it's really like, I'm looking at this here. This is a great example. You know, somebody talks and then somebody adds something, and then it goes to there, and then it touches this person, and it's just like, we just don't know what's going to happen, no matter how, you know, big it is, you know. And I was listening to someone the other day talk about how, because, you know, I was caught up in, yeah, well, I'm alone at home and I'm not going anywhere, and, you know, how can that make a difference in all of this? And her point of view was, you make a difference just with your being, because you're part of it all. You know, like, you are part of it all. So if you can bring that peace with you, even if you're at home, which actually makes me see now that if that peace wasn't there, then I would be revving my neighbor, you know? And so it's like, if we can just start with this, just this is already, like, ourselves, it's already like a big step.
I was listening to Dicken Bettinger talk a little bit about when we come to this place of presence and knowing, and how it brings that sense of peace, that it's rather ordinary. That I think a lot of the times we live in a a lifestyle of such sensationalism that it needs to be extraordinary and extreme to match that way of living that we experience in day-to-day life. But that when we come to this deep peace and this deep knowing, it's actually rather ordinary and almost even mundane. It's just kind of simple. And I think that it's in the simplicity is that where the difference becomes tangible.
Yeah, I loved that Dickon spoke about that, because it's but because it is all of our nature.
Yeah.
That's what's ordinary about it. And it's interesting to me as I look at what's happening around us in the world right now. In a very unique way, it's such a neutralizer and an equalizer, and because we are in a way being forced to settle back into our nature. We have a lot of quiet time. We have more reflective time. We're that external, the places where we go for external self-soothing, you know, the shopping or the gym or the dating or the whatever it is that looks like it will create some sort of soothing for us, is no longer on offer. And so we are, forced might be a strong word, but we are being forced to be more introspective and more reflective. And from that place, we realize, oh, the thing that's extraordinarily ordinary about this is that we all have this. We all have this peace. We all have this knowing. We all have this space within us that when we choose to live from that, that's when we show up and create, you know, a podcast of meditations for people to listen to, or we give someone money and that changes their life, or we just love on our neighbor and his dog a little bit more, or we, you know, all those things that's just the next thing for us to do. And it feels so easy, right? So I'm going to share this and well, let me just share it. So I was recently speaking with a client who was feeling a ton of anxiety around what is happening right now externally in the world. And then a lot of anxiety because their business had closed down. They'd lost quite a bit of money. And the prospect of the continued money that they were going to be losing, the building that they were leasing, or the building they owned, continuing to pay lease and mortgages on those, all of these things. And it was a lot, to the point where they were just like, the anxiety was feeling like that's what was natural, the anxiety, because all this is happening. And then on top of that, it was, hey, I know I'm a creative person. I'm super creative. I'm really good at coming up with ideas and making things happen and creating financial abundance. But there was so much thinking and revving and disruption that was where all the attention was there. And so then this person was also upset with themselves and having more anxiety, because they're like, why am I not creating $40,000 tomorrow in the midst of all that? And it was so interesting as they were able to open their mind up a little bit and explore the idea that when we are caught up in, even though we know innately we're very creative, that's what humans do. I mean, we are here to create, to express, you know, however you look at that, if that's source living through you or however that looks, it's very much part of our human experience to create. But when I feel like I have to create and I'm in that place of force, so let me, you know, Summer, like you were saying, let me look at this and this and that, like there's that force to create and make a difference through that creation. That's not where it is. And when they realized that their best creative self was from a place of calm and that reconnection to their own inner wisdom, their own personal divinity, if you will. And then the next day, they created one of the most beautiful, simple things with their children and their spouse. And it just was so fun to kind of witness that, witness when the mind was allowed to calm down, the creation happened. Did they go out and create $40,000? I'm not sure that happened that day, but I think their understanding of that's where the $40,000 idea comes from. It doesn't come from me spinning up here or trying to make it look a certain way. It's going to come from me coming from like a place of peace and from that knowing that I have inside of me. Morgan? Sorry, colored Morgan.
Yeah, I like it. I love the two examples that you and I talked about last week, Mom, of I think you should share them with what you're talking about right now, because they've really shifted. Like when I feel myself going into a place of anxiety, the example of the train and the tarantula thing have just like saved. I don't know if anyone else is needing those right now, but they've helped me so much in this time of like stress. I don't know if you want to share them.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Michael Neal does a great TED Talk called Why Aren't We Awesomer? And I know some of you have seen that. And in it, he talks about a show that he was doing, I believe it was in the UK, and it was based on an NLP practice, as he used to be an NLP master. And so they were bringing these people in that had a really major fear, and then they would, through NLP, they would get them out of their fear. And then it was being televised. So this particular group had a fear of spiders, I think tarantulas in particular. So they're in a rehearsal, dress rehearsal. They're all hooked up to the machinery, the EKGs that are going to measure their stress and their fear. And the stage manager walks in with an empty plastic container and says, there's no spiders in here, and there probably aren't even any in the building right now. But when I come in during the when we're rolling tape, this is going to be filled with tarantulas. And the minute he said that, their machinery just went wild. It just went off the chart, right? Because they were so afraid, not because they were looking at a box that was empty, a clear plastic container. They could see that it was empty, but their fear was coming from the thinking they had about the future tarantulas that were going to be in there. And so, to what Morgan is saying, just that idea that when we are in a scenario like this, where the things that are happening externally are feeling so overwhelming and scary, and those things are even affecting, they can be affecting us monetarily. They can be affecting us, that we may have had a loved one who's ill, or someone who's really struggling with different aspects of what's happening outside of us. But within that, we all have the opportunity to fall back into that space of quiet and of peace, and to realize that is literally my thinking. That is literally a thought that I'm having about a future, and I'm making up that I'm going to have making up my fear around that. And how during this time we're creating, a lot of people are creating make-believe futures, and then having a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety around that. And that doesn't have to be the case when we can kind of remind ourselves, oh, I'm looking at that box and it's actually empty. And I can go ahead.
I just had an interesting experience with this week. Is we've had this investment that has gone poorly, and we know we're going to have to pay back a large amount to the couple we invested with. And I've had so much anxiety about it for weeks and weeks and weeks. And it's just this buildup. And I've started using that example. Anytime the anxiety would come, I'm like, oh, I don't even know what it's going to look like yet. Well, we figured out this last week exactly what it's going to look like. we know when our payments are gonna start to them and everything. And it's actually way less scary when the thing is in the box and I can see it. It's weird, but like a weight's been lifted because the anxiety was way more. And I don't know if that's always the case. Like obviously if it's a sickness and then you lose the loved one, I don't know how that feels. But I do know that like for me in this example, the weeks of anxiety versus like the reality of what it is were way worse. If that, and I feel like that's pretty often the case for me at least.
Yeah. You're nodding, Nina. Do you have something to add to that? Share. Let me unmute you.
Here we go. I mean, I know this for myself. When I don't know the facts and I just imagine I don't want to happen, it's just not a good place to be. So I can really appreciate what you're saying, that just when we realize how much we make up about our future, our present, we don't see what's right in front of us, the possibilities right in front of us. And this is a little bit going left field, but I had a conversation with somebody earlier today who, because they're in lockdown and she has 3 young children, she's trying to think about how are they all going to keep busy right now. And she said she went outside and she saw that her yard was filled with violets, which she said she's never had time to notice before because she's always been running around busy doing this and that and the other thing, up in her head 99% of the time. And she thought, oh, I could make a simple syrup out of violets and use it for drinks, for cocktails, for fizzy water, whatever you're going to use it for. And she said she never would have thought about that if she didn't have the headspace. And I think one of the beauties, oddly enough, about this time that we're in is that it gives us more headspace. If we don't fill it up with worry and buy in with the fear that is being encouraged by most of the media, is that we have room to notice what else is here for us. The really simple things, trees, if you're in this part of the country, trees in bloom, or the birds singing that have come back from the winter, or daffodils blooming, or the scent of things in the air, which normally, who's got time for that? But having that headspace, I think is just, it's such a gift. It's such a gift. We ignore so much, and we're never, well, not never, but most of us, when we're in our heads, we're just not present. So we don't see those things. We don't feel them. We don't get to appreciate them.
Beautiful.
Hearing you say that, Nina, kind of in this context of making a difference, I've just been I'm always so enamored with the crocuses and the very first things that come out, and they come through the snow, right? They're coming out so early that they're actually coming through the snow where I live. And there's something about when we are settling into that, like how fertile we become to be a creative vessel. Like it's all of a sudden, it's like the snow's starting to melt away. Our layers of thinking and nervousness or worry or concern, as those melt away and the headspace is cleared, to your point, Nina, then that's when the growth just so beautifully happens, right? It in a natural way, like that creative energy in us knows how to come up. It knows how to push through the snow and through the earth and then the snow. It knows how to open. It knows how to bloom. It knows how to unfold. And it's just so perfect.
And when we settle, so do we.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're trying to like force a seed to grow through the snow sooner than it's ready to, which is so futile.
Yeah, and some of us, just like give up and stop looking for that seed that's growing before it even, came, like, because it's not coming in the time that we think it should come. Like, we give up. Okay, let's just dig this out. It's not fast enough. Let's put another one.
Yeah. I wonder if there's a way, like, what do you guys think about, I'd love to get your thoughts on when this is happening, what feels different? Like, what feels different when in my body, when I look at the box and realize, oh no, it's empty, versus when I think that there's spiders in there? And how does that in turn affect what we create or the difference that we make during this time? Does anyone have anything they'd like to share on that?
Well, anxiety was a big thing for me. I was anxious the better part of my life. Would have insomnia where like my brain would just run and run and run and run and run and run. I think it was like 5 years of, when I first started working, where it would just run and run and run. And somewhere for myself, when I finally got that, OMG, I'm the one doing it. I'm the one generating this thing in my stomach with my mind. I'm making shit up. I just saw it. Once I saw that, the thing that helped me quite a bit, and I'm gonna share the story of my mom, where my mom passed away about 2 years ago of dementia. And, being an anxious girl, what I was anxious about was my mom would get Alzheimer's, dementia. And I was like, oh, what am I going to do if mom has that? I hope mom never gets that. And I would just run myself ragged about it, and I could not sleep for, days just because I'd be running. My mom was obviously very important to me. And then once I started seeing, that my anxiety was caused by something that I would make up, and then I tried to, and I guess my insomnia was me trying to solve the thought that I made up, so that I could finally get rid of the anxiety. When my mom got diagnosed with dementia, I did not go crazy. I didn't. I would just bring myself back to the moment. I would bring myself to the now. And if I would see myself start panicking, then I'd go, okay, wait a second. Attends, I'm French. I'd say, attends, wait a sec. What's going on right now? Like, right now, how is mom? And then I would look at her and I'd be like, she's good. Okay, so right now she's good. And there's only right now. Whatever I made up could happen, has not happened. And I don't know if it's going to happen. So I'm not going to deal with it right now. And I think that I did get into this space with mom where I was like, I need all of my mind space right now because she's going to need me. And my mom, if I was anxious, my mom was anxious. Like, she gave that to me. We grew up together, and I took it from her, you know. And so I knew she was very anxious, and that if I'm anxious and she's anxious, then it's just going to be a big ball of anxiety. And I was just like, no, I would just bring myself back. What's going on right now? And I would look at it like that. I would say, how's she doing right now? And sometimes I would literally ask her, how are you doing? I'm good. Okay. And I would do that every day. And I did not, and the times that I took care of my mother were the most beautiful years of my life. And I thought it was going to be the worst thing ever. And through it all, like, people would just ask me, like, what's going on? Like, how are you smiling right now? And I'd be like, well, right now everything is good. All is well, you know. And I dealt with the moment. So for me, when it comes to anxiety, I always bring myself back to the moment right now. Do I know what's going to happen? I don't. But I know what's going on right now. There's one thing for sure, I know what's going on right now. So that's how I did it.
Yeah, so great. And I guess when the question I'm asking about feeling, like when you felt that, like what, like the difference that happened in your body, so that because sometimes I think we forget, like there's a feeling attached to the thinking, and we don't, if it's a yucky feeling, we don't like it, and then we think, oh, I don't want to have that yucky feeling, I want my stomach to be tight or blah blah. But if we recognize that feeling of the tight stomach is just the reminder, oh yeah, I'm thinking about something I'm either making up, isn't true, a falsehood of the future, and I don't have to stay there. I don't have to stay with that thought. When you realize that you were getting caught up in your anxiety about your mom, and then the reality of it was you didn't feel that way, and you just felt the peace around it. And so if we can even use our remember to be grateful for that our body is doing that, to give us those words of wisdom right there, like, darling, you're probably really caught up in something that's not serving you right now. And you can choose to look at the box again.
Can I say something?
Absolutely, please do.
So cool, here we are. Oh, life is awesome, and it's really real right now. And like, you know how we're all quarantined? Like, being quarantined with your soon-to-be ex-husband is a next level of hell. And I find myself with a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear and a lot of just like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And the thing that I keep going back to is, what can I control? What can I control? And so as soon as I start to feel that like rise in my stomach and the quickening of my heart, I'm like, hey, obviously I'm thinking about something that I can't control. Because when I'm thinking about what I can be in control of, I don't freak out, right? Like, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know. But I do know that when I allow myself the grace of like, yeah, this is hard. Cool. This is a roughie. Like, we're all in this and whatever. But when I spin out of control, I recognize that I'm focusing on things that are not in my control. And so the things that I can control are my thoughts, or what I hang on to in my thoughts. I can control how I speak to other people and what I fill my time with, and I can control what I post on my social media, and I can control how I interact with my kids. But I can't control all of these other things that are the things that cause me anxiety. So be in what I can control. And when I do that, all of the things happen, all of the miracles happen. And life is so much easier when you're like, well, okay, this is hard, and it's also great,
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Really beautiful. And the recognition that I get the control, if that's the word that we're using, like my ability to recognize when I'm in that, my ability to even recognize that I'm going there with my thinking. And sometimes, and probably most of the time, it might not take anything more than that, just to recognize that I'm over there. That's why I'm feeling the anxiety. That's why I'm feeling the stomach ache. That's why I'm feeling the spin, the whirl, because I'm literally following this thought, this line of thinking down a rabbit hole. I'm literally jumping on that train of thought that is taking me so far away from the platform of me, away from this calm place of pause. And I'm jumping on that thought and letting it take me. And all of a sudden I'm in Quebec, and I live a long ways from Quebec, and that's not where I wanted to end up. I wanted to and sometimes it's just recognizing I'm just on that, and it doesn't feel good. So once I see that I'm on it, all of a sudden I'm just back on the platform. I'm back here. So it feels like I am controlling that, but even that, sometimes I feel like I don't even have the energy to control. Sometimes it's like, oh, I feel like I should be pulling myself up by my bootstraps right now, but I don't even have boots on. Like I can't even go to that. So if it's just, I don't even need to do that. I just need to I just get to recognize that that's where I'm headed, because my body is telling me it's really uncomfortable to be there. And instantly I'm back. Instantly I see my mom as whole. I ask the question, how are you? You're good? Perfect.
Yeah.
I am instantly back in that moment of seeing what's really here. And then it's the crocuses and the what was the flower she saw out there that she made the simple syrup out of? Like, I love that. It's just something she had never recognized or seen before.
Yeah, it really comes back to what we were saying a little earlier. It's almost like anxiety or fear, or there are some things that just take all of our mind space. Like they just suck us in. But when we can recognize the feeling it has, then, like you say, then we can come back to, oh yeah, I don't want to go there. I used to do seminars. I used to translate from French to English. So they were giving seminars, and then all the English participants couldn't understand the French. So I would translate in English for the English participants. And I remember there was a person giving the class, that came up to me once, and she said something like, oh, well, I just broke up with my boyfriend, and then I wanted to engage in that thought with her. Like, I was like, oh yeah, how did you break up with her? How are you going? And she just looked at me and she said, no, this is not the place for me to go to talk about that. And it's not that space, and I kind of I just got how, wow, she can just not talk about it. Like, for me, it was just foreign. It's like, but no, let's talk about it. You're going to feel better. No, you don't have to. You don't have to go in there and.
Yeah. Why stir that pot, right?
Yeah.
Why jump on that car? I jump on that train and then go into the dining car, and be like, oh no, I'm going to sit down and have a drink and have somebody serve me dinner in here, because I really want to be on this train.
Yeah.
I'm going to have all my friends join me at the table.
Yeah. Yeah.
Paula, is there anything you'd love to share with us?
This is for us control freaks. A reminder, I believe Byron Katie talked about business. What is your business? Someone else's business, God's business. So when you remember that there's really not much out there that is your business, and whatever is your business, you will know immediately. It is so much easier to let go of your anxious feelings.
Yeah.
Your husband or soon to be ex-husband. You cannot change media projecting fear onto everyone. That's someone else's business. You cannot spread the virus or stop the spread of the virus. This is God's business. So whenever you decide to jump on a train to Quebec, sorry, Jasmine, just remembering that that is not your business makes it so much easier to jump back into your platform of well-being.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you. Such a Byron Katie fan. Are you unmuting yourself, Summer? Were you wanting to say something? This has been such a great exploration. Thank you guys so much for being here, for sharing your hearts and your thoughts. And Jasmine, thank you for inviting me. It's just been a joy to, explore.
Definitely fun. I'm happy we did it. And I'm not stressed anymore.
You mean all that thinking you were having at 11:20 or at 1:20 for you was
Yep.
all made up? It was all made up?
Thinking. There was no thinking there. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. It was a lot of fun. We have more coming. You can go visit my page, look at the events in my Facebook page, and you'll see them all. I've got a few scheduled next week and for the rest of April, and I'm even starting to do May now. So this is going to be fun, and every time we're going to have somebody coming. I have Nina that's going to come also, and Ala just also did one. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you very much, and we shall see you later, and enjoy making a difference in the world.